Hi, this is Jürgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. I have an interesting topic for you today. It's a little mystery that took me a long time to crack or solve, and it's the following. When you look at how people or when people suffer psychologically, when they begin to depress or have their panic attacks or have their compulsions, uh, or their chronic pain issues, their fibromyalgia, their chronic back pain, their migraines, whatever it might be. Very often, you can associate the onset of these experiences or symptoms with life circumstances and how people make sense out of those circumstances. Meaning, very often they emerge during what people may call stressful times. So there might be issues in the marriage, there might be a lot of stuff going on in the workplace. Um, Things are usually happening in the person's life where they can see, yeah, I was unhappy for a long time. And I was stressing and ruminating a lot and anxious about this and that. And then the panic attacks emerged. Or I was in this situation in my marriage, we tried to make it work. And then everything just started looking bleak and hopeless. And I sank down into this depressive funk. But sometimes when you talk to people or clients, they'll report that, you know what? I was profoundly happy. I was profoundly happy, very fulfilled. My life was going very well. And then I plunged into a deep depression. So, what about when happy people suddenly become very depressed or start to develop chronic pain, seemingly out of the blue? What might be going on? Very often, these folks are quick to think that there must be something biological going on, and there might be. You still want to do your medical tests to see if something. But very often, people land on the idea that this has nothing to do with my psychology, my way of thinking and feeling and relating to experience. After all, I was happy. A bit like the people who say, look, the migraines emerged on my first day of vacation. I was home, I was relaxing, I was boom. And then the whole cascade occurred. For a long time, this mystified me. And I was thinking, what on earth is going on? Now, here's actually what's most likely going on. And I've verified this with so many clients since. And that is, as I've talked about in previous videos, when people are depressing, anxietizing, doing panic attacks, doing compulsions, suffering psychologically, there's usually a lot of what Albert Ellis used to call masturbating going on, meaning we demand certain outcomes, we demand certain guarantees, we demand that people respect us and listen to us, that the world be a fair place, that we be in control and master things and make good decisions and so on and so forth. And when we masturbate a lot, we're very prone to suffer psychologically. And we're very prone also to develop chronic pain as a result of that stress. So here's what can happen. Let's say someone grew up and they had a childhood with neglectful parents, or they had, a first marriage with a partner that was kind of cold or not very loving. This may all have been very bearable for the person. Like they didn't really depress about it. Yeah, might kind of have sucked a bit, but not that big a deal. Let's say now that they suddenly find a new partner and that partner is wonderful, meaning they're truly in love, their new partner treats them with respect and appreciation and is supporting and loving, and they're just in paradise, or they get their new job, or they're actually successful and they master things and they have good colleagues, or um, life's deeply fulfilling. What can happen sometimes if people have these kind of masturbating tendencies going on quite a bit is that they go, shit, I'm profoundly happy. This is what a marriage is supposed to be, or this is how people should treat each other, or this is how life should be. And now they look back on previous relationships, their parents, their siblings, their own personal history, and they start demanding that my life should have been like that. Like suddenly they're very aware of the opportunity for life to be good and for relationships to be good. Like previously, it might not really have been on the menu, but now they have a realization that shit, life can be like that. And then they look back and they get profoundly bitter. Why didn't my parents treat me like this? Or why didn't my first husband or wife treat me like this? Or how could my former boss or teachers be so vindictive? And they get bitter and resentful because they now, in light of their current relationship, begin to demand that their life previously absolutely should have been that way. And of course it wasn't. And now they're deprived, right? So now suddenly something that wasn't that big of a deal becomes an extremely big deal. And they start to reconstruct their past relationships and their past life. I don't mean past life as in pre-birth, the New Agey version. I mean earlier periods of life. They start to evaluate. They start to reconstruct their life through that lens. And what they might also do is to attribute to the various actors in their life malicious intent for having been the way they've been, or the way they were. Of course, what they also might begin to do is that they might have an internal sense that they don't quite feel that they deserve their present relationship or job or something like that. It feels threatening. They're not used to this, and they're aware of the possibility that their partner might leave them, their business might go bankrupt, their new lifestyle might disappear. And now they think that their happiness is dependent upon those things and comes from those things, erroneously, but that's how it looks. And they start to demand that the relationship must last, or that their success must be ongoing, while simultaneously knowing that it's not. And as a result, they can live a very nice life with loving people and meaningful activities, but plummet into hopelessness, helplessness, depressive states, anxiety, panic attacks, chronic pain, and then kind of depress about that because now they feel that they have no, that they should be profoundly happy. So if I'm not happy now, I never will be. So if you have a client who seemingly out of the blue develops a lot of suffering, or does so while claiming to be very happy, look for this. Have this conversation. Are they suddenly reconstructing past relationships or their life through a demand that since I'm being treated well now, or I'm happy now, things should have been different in the past. Demanding that while they were not, and then attributing malicious intent to people. And interpreting that as a sign that this means that I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or whatever. This usually seems to be going on. This is why the old saying, it's never too late to have a happy childhood, but it's never too late to have a miserable childhood either. So, an interesting thing is if you have a client who comes in and they talk about having had a miserable childhood or a traumatic childhood, ask them, for how long has it been traumatic? And they might say, well, all of my upbringing. Or as I know, not asking that. I'm saying, for how long have you had the perception that it was traumatic? Because what I've discovered with clients is that you can have people who, when they grew up, they didn't think that their childhood was particularly traumatic. They might even have been reasonably happy, or even very happy, or moderately happy a lot of the time. So, but what might happen with some people is the mechanism I just explained to you, or they might identify with, for example, some victim oppressor ideology. Like they might become suddenly a stark feminist, and as a result of that, they suddenly begin to reinterpret their entire childhood through these very radical ideas of, I thought I was happy, but now I realized that it was all oppression and it was all a patriarchy, and I just didn't know it. And through that lens, they conclude that they were traumatized and oppressed. A bit like the people who discover memories of sexual abuse in therapy that in all likelihood never happened. I've heard and read in many cases like this. I've spoken to people like this. Like one summer they're sending their father a letter of how much they love him. And 2 years later, they're sending a new letter of, how he ruined their lives. And they just discovered in therapy that they were sexually abused. So based upon that ideology, they're suddenly reconstructing their entire childhood, and now the whole thing was hell, complete hell. But they may have been happy while they actually grew up. So it's never too late to have a miserable childhood. So that question, how long has it been traumatic? Because if someone's childhood, for example, and upbringing gets worse and worse the older they become. So yeah, sometimes people might have a principled anger or a guilty conscience as they evolve, because they suddenly kind of go, you know what, these things weren't really okay. Like now I see more. But they can also adopt certain self-concepts or certain conclusions or certain ways of seeing themselves, that to be able to maintain that particular identity, they begin to reconstruct their childhood or their past in a way where it's now horrible at age 30. But had you asked them at age 18, they would have said, yeah, I'm happy-go-lucky. I'm living a good life. So these are things to look at with clients. I mentioned the migraines. The person who suddenly has the migraines on the first day of vacation, therefore it can't have anything to do with psychology. Very often psychosomatic symptoms function as a distraction from feelings that our minds kind of decide that we better not feel. So the mind kind of generates pain very often instead of feeling certain things. So what could happen in a case like that is, yeah, they're sitting at home with their wife in the jacuzzi and they're having a good time. They're relaxing and suddenly the migraine comes. At work, during stress, they might have a lot of distractions going on. But if they're masturbating a lot and putting enormous pressure on themselves or enormous demands on other people, it generates a lot of stress, right? And if they suddenly start relaxing and the defenses go down and they're no longer distracted, these inner feelings may begin to emerge. And the mind goes, oh shit, warning, warning, better not feel that. We need something physical instead. And here comes the migraine, or Here comes the low back pain. So anyways, I hope this was useful. I hope it tickled your mind just a little bit. I have a seminar coming up March 19th and 20th. No self, no problem. If you're curious about the way I work, go to provocativehypnosis.com to the seminar page. Check out the seminar. If you're looking to make some changes in your life, I see clients from all over the world on Skype. I also do mentoring. You can find out about this on provocativehypnosis.com. Thanks for listening.